I was not here, obviously, for the pregame show, but I did have a game of the week, and I chose the Cardinals Vikings game that ended by 1 point. Vikings pulling away 23-22. Gives them 10 wins on the season, but I'm not sold on the Vikings. I'm really not. They do let up generally a lot of passing yards, and this week they didn't get 340 yards put up on them like they did the week before from Caleb Williams, but Kyler Murray still put up 260 yards. He just didn't have one of those good games that he's been having over the last number of weeks since the new Black Ops has come out. Kyler Murray. He had some wild passes, some really dumb mistakes made through a tight roped sideline ball directly to, I believe it was Byron Murphy Jr. there, and just gave up a dumb interception. But for the most part, the best one of the best rushing defenses in the Vikings gave up 154 yards to the Arizona Cardinals. James Conner did have 70, almost 70 on the ground. Um, Trey McBride had a big fantasy week, but came away with 96 yards on 12 catches. Overall, I'm just not really sold on this Vikings defense, which is what every Vikings fan continues to tell us that is so good about this team. They just lack in a lot of areas that outside of the blitz, I don't know if they can pull it off when it comes to playoff time. Offensively, Sam Darnold has regressed, still put up 235 yards passing, but he is not the same player that he was in the first 4 to 5 weeks where he was putting up a lot of numbers. And they have not been able to really rely on the run game as of late. Only 68 yards this whole week. Sam Darnold was their leading rusher. There was three players that did have 22 yards, but he had 5.5 yards per carry. So Sam Darnold being the leading rusher there, that's not going to produce whenever you need it. And they're really going to have to figure out a way offensively to start really putting some numbers up on the board and figure out how to really stop some of the passing that's going on there on the defensive side. Or they could be in trouble here in a few weeks when the playoffs do kick off.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from this game was the connection between Kyler and Marvin. If that's not there, the Cardinals will really struggle no matter what happens. Kyler has great connections with Trey McBride, like we've talked about multiple times before. But even if he's not playing Black Ops all the time, Marvin's staying after practice catching 100 balls at least after practice. Why isn't Kyler throwing him any of those balls after practice, man? Get some chemistry going. This is the one struggle they have every single week. They're always in these games, but if they get that little bit of chemistry going, where could they be at?
He had 12 targets, man. Sometimes Marvin Harrison, you just got to come down with him.
And sometimes Kyler's got to throw a better ball.
I don't disagree. But
I blame his background in college for that.
Marvin's or Kyler's?
Kyler's, all Kyler's.
oh, just his off
Why?
platform throws. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, he just can't find a good receiver. It's all from being a boomer sooner that he can't throw a good ball.
Mm, mm, mm.
I mean,
Nice
Heisman
dig.
winner.
That's a good dig. I
Heisman
don't know.
winner.
I think the Vikings are probably going to do just fine, but they're just in that tough NFC North. Like it's gonna that the NFC North is going to be a wild ride to the end just because they're all pretty damn good. So you just got
yeah,
to gear up and get ready for that.
I honestly don't think the Vikings are going to be fine. I
Oh,
think
Don't.
things that they were doing on defense were working earlier in the season, and they're not working now. And I do think that Sam Darnold is surrounded by enough talent that he can do just enough to get by. But when it comes down to high pressure situations, like he's not going to be the guy that wins the game for you in the playoffs. Like he's not that good of a quarterback. they're they're I don't think they're necessarily built to win even in the NFC. There's contenders on the NFC side that I would fear much more than the Vikings. I don't think that they will sniff the NFC Championship game. I don't think they win once in the playoffs.
It's exactly where I was getting at. I fully agree with you. There are a lot of things, like I said, especially on the defensive side. You alluded to it. They during the first 5 weeks blitzed 66% of the time and were successful on it. I believe over 70% of the time, and now it is successful. I believe 40% or less than that, and they're still blitzing the same amount. So the things they were good at They're not good at them anymore.
And the Cardinals, I think, just might be a slightly poorly coached team. There's things, like there's metrics on certain things out there that kind of tell you the better teams, the better coached teams versus the not so well coached teams. The Cardinals were 5 for 13 on third down.
That's
They
lack
punted
of execution.
they punted the ball 10 times at that.
That's lack of execution.
Okay. That's fine. But they have a lot of good individual talent. They have good skill players, and I thought that players on their defense were making concerted efforts. Like they're out there fucking hustling and trying just from like the eye test. I don't really know any of their names on the defense, but for the Cardinals, but they they just don't know how to put like a full team effort together, you know? Like they came up just short in this game and they have a lot of fun pieces, but they had over 400 yards of offense against the Vikings defense, but still lost this game by a point. So, um, gut-wrenching loss in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. You got to play a complete game. You got to win in all three facets of the football game for sure. And yeah, please stop disrespecting Buda Baker like that and the rest of the uh, Arizona Cardinals defense for the love
Who
of
else?
God.
Who else?
Also,
Buda Baker.
they are all professional football players. They're all hustling.
That's
They
not
are
true.
Unless
they
you're a
are
Raven.
all hustling.
I mean, I see plenty of players take plays off. There's guys out there
I don't
making.
know if it's plays off, but it's business decisions for sure, and those are two different things. Anyways, um, I just think, oh man,
Man,
the Vikings. I
I
just
used
think
to
they had a
call
rough
Chris
game,
Jones
dude.
out
I
for
think the
taking plays
Vikings
off,
just had a
dude.
rough
So
game, and they'll probably bounce back. Like they
yeah,
had a little hiccup. It's all good though. They'll get it right.
you think
They'll
the
move on to
Cardinals
the
will bounce
next.
back?
Huh?
You think the Cardinals will bounce back?
It's what they do, baby. It's what they do.
It's not what they do.
Maybe.
This year,
I think the Cardinals actually have a
Cardinals
pretty
don't make the playoffs.
decent team.
Probably not.
They have a lot of. They are not a very cohesive team. They have a lot of
No.
individually talented players, and they're not.
The Cardinals will be a season wrecker for the rest of the year.
They don't make the playoffs.
No. But they'll beat a few. They'll be like one or two more teams at the end of the year to like ruin their seasons and get a late win or two.
Maybe.
It's going to come
Yeah.
down to either the Cardinals or the Seahawks. They play each other this upcoming week,
for the
but
first
then
time,
both
right?
no, this will be the second time. The
That is the
first
You
time
don't
second
was
like
a
time.
couple
you don't
weeks
like the
ago. The
Rams.
Seahawks won 16-6.
You don't like the
Um,
Rams.
the Rams, no, I
Yeah.
don't.
I like
Um,
them better than the Cardinals.
they have a lot of offensive line issues, which leak
Like
into the
Seattle.
rest of the game. I like Seattle much better in this division, and Seattle has a chance to pull it off, but it's going to come down, I
I
think, to
think
the
the NFC
Seahawks or the
West is super
Cardinals.
mid this year, but
They are. If the Seahawks win this matchup, it is virtually this upcoming week. It is virtually impossible for the Cardinals to win this division unless the Seahawks massively screw it up. If the Cardinals win this week, it is now a tight race. They both will have the same record, and they will both have just as difficult of schedules. Actually, the Cardinals will have a much less difficult schedule for the remaining 4 games after week 14. So just to take a look at this, the Seahawks and the Cardinals will play in week 14. Then post that, the Seahawks will play the Packers at home. They'll play the Vikings at home. They'll play the Bears in Chicago and the Rams in LA. The Cardinals host the game against Seattle in week 14. They'll have the Patriots at home. They'll have the Panthers in Carolina. They'll have the Rams in LA. And then they'll have the 49ers at home.
so
I
they'll
think the
benefit from a
Cardinals
much easier schedule. So
exactly. But if
Dang.
they do lose the game against the
and they
Seahawks,
still don't make the playoffs.
that gets much more difficult. If they win the
Calling it,
game,
man.
I think the Cardinals do pull it out.
Won't
Dude,
pick the
I just
Cardinals
don't
for
think Kyler
granted.
Murray's like that, man. I just don't really think he is.
He's a gamer, man. He's gonna be fine.
I don't think the stature and style of play of Kyler Murray leads itself to like a high ceiling in the NFL. Like I don't think I'm sure he can be decent and make some athletic plays here and there, but I don't think he's ever going to be like a truly
Yeah.
great.
Hi, Bob. I know you gotta
No, I
shout
don't.
out your short kings and all that stuff. Like I understand that, but
I
like
don't.
I
I
just
don't
don't see
disagree
him.
that he will. I don't disagree with what Tybo is saying. Is that he'll be one of the greater quarterbacks in the league. I don't disagree with that at all. I also don't think that he's been benefited well with offensive coaching. Hell, most quarterbacks and most
I
offensive
just got
players
done saying
don't.
I think they're a poorly coached team. So
Yeah.
like, I mean,
I'll say it from like the head coaching standpoint. It's only in his second year. I think Jonathan Gannon's is actually turning around what's happening in that organization because they've been known for having one of the worst defenses. Offensively, I would totally agree with you that they are not well coached.
But we just also talked about how he doesn't fucking spend enough time with his wide receivers and throwing passes and shit like that.
I think Sean is the only one communicating that.
Oh, come on now. Marvin
I agree
Harrison
with him.
staying
I agree
there.
with him. I think it's poor
Marvin's staying after
execution.
catching that much. You got to be able to
Dude.
throw him a few balls.
Yeah.
Stay after just a little bit longer, Kyler.
Why is my wide receiver staying out longer than anybody else than my quarterback?
My
That's not
rookie
good.
wide receiver.
Is that
Yes, that's
reported?
not
Is
good.
that true? Well,
That
I
is
think
true.
All right.
You're gonna check me on sources? You of
Yeah,
all
bro.
people?
Yeah.
coach should step in and say
I
something.
can't tell you my source. I can't tell you my
Yeah,
source.
if that's true, if that's true, I think there's
I'd have to get it if I don't.
conversations that need to be had.